And thank you for joining us. I am Alero Edu, and this is Sunrise.
Good morning. I'm Ayo Makide. Welcome to the show. I hope you have your cup of cocoa with you.
Or
Cocoa.
the choice
garnished
is yours.
With whatever it is.
Akara, moi moi.
Which one do you garnish? Is it cocoa or cocoa?
Cocoa. It's the cocoa that you...
So you mean the cocoa is the cocoa?
No. The cocoa is the one that needs the akara or the moi moi.
The 9 live to moi moi.
Ole. With the 7 lives.
Some people have lived too long in Lagos.
The one with 7 lives.
Okay, what are these 7
lives? Is it lives or spirits? Emmy? What is Emmy? What, please translate Emmy?
Well, it depends on use or context.
Okay.
Okay. I'm alive. Walayi. That's life. Okay.
Then it can be Mowalayi. No, I'm in the world. I'm in the world. That's Mowalayi. Mowalayi. I'm alive. Okay.
So the Emmy can be your spirit.
Spirit.
And then it can be life.
Okay.
So
it can be 7 spirits and it can be 7 lives. Yoruba is a very interesting language. I mean, you have one word, and depending on how you put the accent, it can mean 10 different things.
Well, you just reminded me.
It's fantastic.
You just reminded me of something.
And confusing, I might add.
you just reminded me of something. I'm sure one of your friends, was it, I've forgotten his name now, said in is it Jebu or Egba language? There's something like Biodun. Biodun has. Have you switched off the light? I've not switched it off. Are Avralakpu? Go and switch it off. Pa, po, pu, all meaning switch. Just switch it off.
That's Yoruba as well. Wow. It gets more interesting, doesn't it?
Well, definitely. We have very, very... I think now in Nigeria, we should have something in the region of 300 to 500 languages. Okay, and just imagine saying good morning in all of these languages.
Wow.
It's the music of it. It's just amazing.
And unfortunately, we don't encourage our children enough, for our grandchildren, to speak or to understand our languages. We think everything is English, English, English. The Chinese actually learn in Chinese, in Mandarin, or whatever the language of their local area is. I think it's, we shouldn't let our languages die. We should not let them die.
I think generally the awareness is increasing, or rather is returning. There is a language in Rivers State, I'm sure you'll be aware of it, Ibani language. It was on the precipice of extinction when some corporate organizations, domiciled in the environment decided, no, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to do everything we can to ensure that the language continues to live. And there are many, organizations like that are doing such things. So if we have CSR initiatives from corporate organizations that can take that on, I think it'll be a good thing. There are also those Nigerians spread in different parts of the world who would say, we're not going to allow this to happen. I'm not going to let my child speak only the English language wherever we are in the world.
In the world, yeah.
I think I heard of an Igbo man that says, in my house, in the US, you only speak Igbo language.
Right on, brother.
And of course, he would understand, the children understand English. There's the school in the US, so they will speak English. But when you get home, it is Igbo language you are going to speak in my house.
Right on, brother. So I like your style.
Another thing that I think can help is we cannot run away from technology anymore. We know that. Thankfully, the Googles of this world are inputting in the keyboards on our mobiles ways in which you can
Options.
put the signs, accents, and
Yes,
all
yes.
on whatever it is that you type. So when I'm using my Android phone, I can do that. I can choose the ones the letters with accents and stuff like that. So on the Gboard. So that is also there. It now depends on who knows how to use it. In fact, you can choose Yoruba language in the options on the keyboard. And that's same for so many other languages.
Well,
And languages like that.
unfortunately, Shakiri is not an option on it yet.
How do you know? They haven't checked.
Because they're not enough of us to want to use it, I'm sure.
What you mean by that? I take exception. I'm protesting right now.
I have friends who abuse me and says to me, Shakiri people, if we put all of you in National Stadium, you'll only be able to fill half of the stadium.
Oh, Jesus, that's not fair.
That's not fair. That's not fair. I agree. But speaking about languages, language, like culture, is dynamic. It moves.
Yeah.
Which is, I suppose, the reason why when I was growing up, the word favorite was pronounced favorite. But more and more, I keep hearing favorite. And I'm wondering, okay, being a language person myself, the language has moved to a point now where that word is now pronounced favorite. But there's no way I'm going to say favorite in a million years.
Oh, well, you're saying it now.
Because for me, that
just
word
want to understand.
remains favorite.
You know as well as I do that sometimes in our culture, in our environment, we pronounce as spelt sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
So
yes.
Some people do that. Okay, for instance, funeral rites, R-I-T-E-S. So someone like, okay, so why would I say favorite when R-I-T-E is
rights?
So sometimes it's
Favorites.
just that conundrum. People
but the English language gives you a rule, and there are more exceptions than there are the rule.
Mm-hmm. That speaks to the dynamism of the language. That's what you're talking
English
about.
language, sometimes it just frustrates you and you just want to scream.
No, let's not go into the lecture this morning, because if so there are those who say, okay, it's one goose. Why is it not one gooses? Why is it not two gooses? And stuff like that. We could go on and on that one.
Suddenly you say it's goose and geese. Come on. Give me a break.
No, don't take the break yet. Okay. You wanted to raise an issue about the rice pyramids?
The rice pyramids, yes, that got a lot of, pardon the use of my word, airplay in the course of this week. And we did actually see pyramids of rice. But I got bothered because I'm saying to myself, your country is full of hungry people, and you can see them on the streets, hungry. And you are making pyramids of your rice. For God's sake, give people food.
I don't know if we ever had rice pyramids, but I knew
we have them now.
Not pyramids back then.
We have rice pyramids now.
Okay, those rice pyramids, are they always going to be there, or they're just for pictures?
No.
We're going to be talking a lot more about that.
We're planning to export rice.
Well, that sounds like a good idea, but do we have enough at home yet? It's just a question. Maybe when we get
point. Let us eat first. Then you can. Well, okay. Look at what's happening to the crude oil. We are exporting, and we're not thinking about what we're going to use at home.
Did you come here with shades?
Sorry. Yes, the menu. Yes, alternative.
Rice is a menu, so.
Alternative to fuel subsidy.
Well, that's definitely the first item on our agenda this morning, and then inequality kills. Reversing the trend. Now, that's a very interesting discussion you want to be a part of. How is Nigeria faring in that regard?
And then we'll be talking about Shelter Afrique. What's that all about? They want to shelter the whole of Africa? Well, let them start from Nigeria.
And then, yes, we will definitely talk about the rice pyramids this morning.
And we'll see to what end we're building those pyramids.
Can you go to the next item?
Sorry. And we shall close with the Artist of the Week segment. And all I can say is that he is a he.
At least he's a human.
My God.
So, Coming right up after this welcome is the first topic. You're welcome. Grab your cup of cocoa.
Or cocoa. Of course, Twitter is back now, so you can be part of the program. Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, let's get the show started. Last year, the federal government disclosed its plan to remove fuel subsidy in the second half of this year. Although the government has initiated a fact-finding process to determine the true state of affairs on the issues surrounding the removal, controversy looms on this particular subject. Now, we are going to discuss it with our panel, which is made up of Dr. Monday Ashibogu, who is the former PRO, Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, NASME. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Mr. Lubenga Adeoye, a chartered accountant.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. We're going to discuss with them and see if there are any alternatives to this. Let me just cut it to the quick straight away. Doctor, are there any alternatives?
Well, it's amusing to discuss alternative to subsidy. Have there been subsidy in the first place? The answer is yes.
Sorry, Prof. I
I'm
do
not
apologize.
a professor.
Let me start by asking you to actually tell us what subsidy is. We hear this word all the time. What is subsidy?
Well, subsidy is it's a process which a system uses to cushion an effect for cost for products or services being rendered in the interest of the public. Mm-hmm. So in the case of the petroleum products, as early as the 70s, there was the need to fix our refineries. And in doing that, they also looked at the export cost. And they realized that, look, it is better to cushion this effect for Nigerians. After all, the product belongs to us. Mm-hmm. And over time, the intention was to have the capacity for local production that will meet the needs. But today, the subsidy is not internal, it's more external. So you're paying for the cost of import. So you're paying for the cost of import. So you send crude products to some countries, they bring finished products for you at global prices. And you can't sell at that price to the average Nigerian on the street because you do not even have an explanation where you have 4 refineries that are not working, and then you have to charge them to pay maybe say 400 naira per liter or 380 naira per liter. So you say, okay, fine, you know what? Government will take a particular cost for this and pay the importer. Now, and over time, it's become a business with different middlemen involved. So it's become a cartel of its own. It's become a business that's sustainable by those who run this, and at the detriment of Nigerians.
And there are some who claim monies for loads that didn't arrive in Nigeria, shipments that didn't arrive.
It's bound to happen because, you see, the entire value chain and supply chain is enmeshed with corruption. So there are, for a transaction just as little as just offloading crude oil, you may have more than 500 third parties in it. It allows for that, yes. You can have as much as 500 middlemen involved in a transaction.
What?
So it should not amuse you. It should not. So it's not something that comes 500. To us as a surprise. So that's why, a lot of things happen in that sector. A lot of things happen in that sector. And that's the reason Nigerians have been calling for these industrial reforms. With the new PIA, it becomes a law. And that law does not recognize the existence of any subsidy. Now, but there's a transition process that has been put in place. And because the government works in silos, the problem we'll always have is the National Economic Committee will be something different from the Petroleum Ministry. The Finance Ministry will be doing something different from the National Planning Department. So that's what we've been having now. Because there was a transition committee that was inaugurated by the Petroleum Minister. And the law provides for a transition committee over time to take care of these issues. But now suddenly we hear someone comes out from nowhere and says, oh, we're going to fix the price of petroleum products in June to say 302 or 340. There are speculations. But the issue is that's not how the law says it should be done. There's a transition in place.
Well, Dr. Adeye,
Yes, please.
all of this is really confusing for so many people. And one issue that Dr. Shibogo has just raised now speaks to the fact that there is need for that handshake with government. We understand that on the one hand, the Minister of Finance says in 6 months, we're going to have to terminate that. That's all the provision that's been made in the budget. The finance minister says no. But that's the president of the Senate says no. The president didn't say that anyone should remove subsidy. You've heard also the former head of state saying, if we attempt to remove subsidy, it's going to put hardship on the people. The labor is just getting ready in with their armory to take this on.
They're warming up.
Let me start by saying that when you want a capitalist system, you need to consider the number of public goods that you have in your country. So what the PIA has done, and I think I can clap for the Senate, the National Assembly, who promulgated the PIA, because from we have 319 sections in the whole of the Petroleum Industry Act, and 22 sections was devoted to the people, community development. Now, when you look at that, before, you only provide infrastructure for the people when you like, as you deem fit. But there is a law that says, do this to the community, without prejudice to the view of people who feel there are places included in the community that should not be there. That's a different ball game. Now, let's look at removal of subsidy. That can only be acceptable in a country where you have enough public goods. So in November 2021, it was reported that we've spent about 220 billion in subsidy, and that was the highest in 2 years. Now, at that time, I look at the population of 220 million people. You have only spent 1,000 naira on each citizen in a month. So, if that is the case, then you have not done anything much. So, if you remove subsidy today, you will create crisis beyond the subsidy remover. Because the whole expenditure, even if it gets to 300 billion a month, you'll be spending about 3.6 trillion in a year. And let's say we are about 300 million people. It's just 12,000 naira that you are spending on average Nigerian. Now, removing it will be like bringing world champions in wrestling and boxing into the ring to fight with somebody training under the bridge at Surulere or Atibara in Abeokuta. Now, for people like you, for some other people, some of us, we may not feel the heat so much. But you need to consider that woman. You talked about language and food and the rest this morning. Somebody grinding pepper. Mm-hmm. He relies on this PMS. Somebody grinding corn for pap, ogi, or beans for beans cake, akara. The small salon relies on this. Now, people who have fixed income, especially salary earners, how are they going to cope? Because as of today, we are around 165. People cannot cope. Now, the speculation that you had is not just an ordinary speculation, because the price differential in imported products account for increase in prices, no doubt about it. But the question to ask is, this subsidy we are paying on the consumption we claim to be 30 million litre a day, so 900 million litre in a month. We need to ask question, how did we arrive at our figures.
Yeah.
Which is the same question
Yeah.
the president of the Senate was
So,
asking.
I think I align with Mr. President, who said he did not tell anybody about removal of subsidy. But what the PIA is talking is that let's liberalize the system, let it be by the market forces. But in a country, you need to consider your people. So, capitalist environment like the US and other countries in the West that we want to follow, that market determined situation, they have enough public goods. In Lagos here, all of you are stressed. People wake up as early as 4 a.m., 5 a.m. because there are no good transport system. In London, you already know the time you are going to get to the train station. The other day, I saw a video that Sanwo-Olu was in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, looking at trains. But I remember the learned son, Babatunde Fashola, also was at Canada at a time when he was governor. So where are those trains we talk about? So I hope these are not just social media issues. So public goods like the transport system, healthcare system, quality education that is free for people, that is not available, will not give you the justification to now say subsidy is removed and then people can go ahead and start buying at 340. That would be a disaster.
What he has just said brings to mind the comparison that people make all the time. Oh, Nigeria's PMS is the cheapest in Africa. Oh, it is the cheapest in the world. It is the cheapest. We can't compare it to Saudi Arabia. Other oil-producing countries are selling at this price, but Nigeria is selling at that price. But what they don't take into cognizance is the fact that there are social welfare issues which are taken care of in those countries, which are not even looked at in Nigeria at all. A messenger's wife or child goes to the hospital. He has to pay out of pocket for the treatment. Even our security operatives do not get to ride on buses for free. They pay. So all these other expenses that people are paying out of pocket, all those things don't happen in the countries that Nigeria is being compared with.
Well, let me just, on a humorous part of it, how many Nigerians earn about $5,000 a month? Because I know in some places in Canada, for a 3-bedroom flat, you pay as much as $3,000 a month as your rent, right? It means that you should earn as close as $5,000 to $6,000 a month. So if you wish to compare Nigeria with these countries that have these systems available, so pay Nigerians the same income that they earn there. It's just simple.
How?
So, comparison is convenient. Yeah, of course, yeah, it's convenient for you to just wake up and tell
compare.
people that in Canada, in Saudi Arabia, paid Nigerian workers the same salary that those people earn there. Fine. Then the income that small and medium enterprises generate here, you have 22 different types of indirect taxes that come to you in Lagos alone as an SME. Not going to the coffers of the government. Area boys come to you, local governments come to you, you pay TV, you pay for radio, you pay for the gate, you pay for signage, you pay for everything. You generate your own power in excess of what you even need. And then there's one mischievous fellow who comes with a crazy bill from the school. So, I mean, let's face it. Now, and with all this, the average Nigerian is embattled. He's traumatized. He's terrorized. Then the government comes with a finance act that is asking us to pay more. You see, I think the government has actually been behaving like a spoiled brat. From a rich father who crashes a car after coming back from club overnight. He has knocked off somebody on the road while coming back. There's a police case on the ground. Wakes up in the morning with a sense of entitlement to ask his father for another car. That's what we've done to the economy.
And he will get it.
That's what we've done to the economy. We've developed the pageant for borrowing. We've developed a habit.
Well, you'd also remember that the same finance minister, my apologies.
Yes.
The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning had said in a public forum recently that we don't have a debt problem. We have a revenue problem. for which reason we seem to be asking for how to get more revenue to balance out, whatever it is that, government needs to do for the people. But you see, this issue of fuel, alternative to fuel subsidy that we are looking at, there are arguments, and you may be able to speak to that, Dr. Adeye. There are arguments from several economists that we need to plug that fuel subsidy leak. We need to stop paying subsidy. Otherwise, we will continue to have a problem of the kind of problem of revenue that we are having on our hands. A situation where something in the region of, say, 80–90% of the revenue we generate goes into paying subsidy or what's it called, recurrent expenditure. It's definitely a problem that we cannot, continue to allow to happen. So, on the one hand, is that challenge of the subsidy that we pay. On the other hand, is the challenge of stopping the subsidy payment so that we can at least have some savings that we can put into development?
Well, I would say that there are two different issues. On increase in revenue, if we have a proper federal system, each state should be able to think out of the box and work out sources of revenue and then work out the development of their states, make life so comfortable for the people. But when you look at subsidy that we are discussing, what is the price differential? So let's be sure of what is the quantity of how many barrels of importation have you been able to do into the country to determine the subsidy amount itself. You recall there was a time that the former central bank governor was talking about the issues of some vessels get into Nigeria, nothing was discharged, and then documents surface at NNPC. Very soon there will be no NNPC anyway. With the PIA, there's a new company that will emerge. So cost, expenses of government is going to, wastages will be minimized because these entities will run to make profit. But like I said earlier, that what determines the intervention of government in any country is a function of what is available for the people. And so where there is no balance, so equitable distribution of public goods is what subsidy tend to address. So you know that we are in a country, I just got information that some states will not have electricity for some days, and you are aware that AMCON has taken over one particular IBDC or something. So people do not have electricity. Take note of that. People do not have good transport system that is simple, easy, and cheap. Because for other people, you just need a card, Oyster card. You go in, buses, and children going to school, they don't pay in their school uniform. So public goods that are not available, and there is no trust that if subsidy is stopped today, something will suddenly emerge. Now, infrastructure is not what you build in a day. As accountant, one of the things that you look at with their long-term projects, fixed assets, to build roads, rail lines, additional trains, is not going to happen immediately. Because even if you buy the train, where is the rail line that you are going to put it?
You've raised an issue now of, on the one hand, long-term investment in infrastructure, and on the other hand, the fact that, look, the fuel subsidy is an issue. But the alternatives are not there. You just talked about the fact that with the IBDC, taking over. Some states might be, not have access to electricity and all of that, which is supposed to be one of the alternatives. I would guess. But in the light of what you have just said now, then what are the options for the people?
So the options is that because he was mentioning that government is like a spoiled child, I do not believe that. We might look at things that have been done that make them to look like that. But I think we have a lot of intelligent people that are in government as of today. So we all need to sit down together and say, look, what is the impact, or what are the impacts of not paying subsidy of 200 or 300 billion a month, and then making more money available, in quote, to do other things. These other things that we want to do, what is the gestation period? How long are we going to do it? Are we really going to do it at all? But right now, there is something that people are getting. And so there's what we call transition. So you can say, between now and 5 years, we are going to make sure we do this. Now, if you increase your local refinery capacity, the cost that is leading to payment of subsidy will just vanish. I tell you that. What are the determinants of price differential? Foreign exchange fluctuation. Because if you are buying from Holland, from China, you are going to pay in the currency of the country you are buying. Not only that, you have agency cost. People preparing your bill of lading, the shipping line, the clearing agents, and the rest, you have to pay them. The owners of the vessels, remember, if you refine in your country, you are not going to bother about, oh, one ship is coming. And you know the volume. These vessels are huge. Insurance cost on finished product that you're bringing in, this will be eliminated. And it pains me so much that between 1999 and 2022, we are still talking about price differential arising from importation. Not only that, the people that are in business, the capitalists, because if you invest somewhere, you want to make profit, they borrow money from banks. In Nigeria today, you get loan at 30% interest. And I keep asking whether the central bank governor is able to sleep every night that in my country, people pay 30% interest. There are interventions. So when you borrow money from the bank to import the fuel, you pay the shipping line, several agencies. There is what we call pre-shipment inspection to know that the number of liters is there. You can't go by yourself. You pay some expert who will tell you this is the number of liters that you have there. You're going to pay. When these vessels arrive here, you are going to clear. So you pay certain duties, discharge with tank farms. The tank farms, they are going to charge you also before you now talk of distribution. Now look at the chains of events that has taken place just because we are not refining. So our problem is not even subsidy issue. Our problem is that the management skill that we have deployed in bringing our refinery to action has failed. Or better still, is failing.
Doctor?
Is
Failing.
which,
So that's
which
continuous.
refinery is working? Which of them?
That's what I'm saying. When I say failing, because we are still
He doesn't work
Something
for the
is
NPC, so he
coming
can't tell you
out.
which refinery is working.
Doctor, we are all looking forward to Dangote refinery coming on board.
Yeah.
How much will this alleviate some of this pain that we're talking about?
Well, the last time I checked, I know the NNPC bought some stake in that business. And the whole idea is to twist Dangote into producing for the local market. If I were Dangote, I would.
But can one refinery produce for the local market?
Well, the capacity of that refinery, it's also interesting to say that it can also reduce the ability to import in the volume we are right now. So if that would also scale down the amount we're importing, the volume of products we're importing. That's fine. But if I were Dangote, I would be looking at the foreign market.
Oh dear.
Definitely, because I would be. You see, he didn't collect naira to build that refinery.
True.
And if you look at the investors or the places he's gotten that money from, they're expecting repayment in dollars. And what's the exchange rate as we speak today? So if I were a Dangote, my first 5 years would be for export. And I'm sure by now he would have started getting orders. So, but the thing is, the deliberate measure by the government to have NNPC as a stakeholder in that refinery is to ensure that that particular refinery also produces for the local market. But at what cost? Because if he's getting these products at global price, you see, it's not something you can alter.
Yeah.
If the barrel is $80, it's $80. So he's going to produce at the cost of $80. That's what the NNPC will sell the crude to him, or wherever he's going to buy that crude from. So if you're buying a barrel for, say, $70, you are going to produce at the cost of $70 plus your markup and profit.
Yeah.
The only difference here is nobody is paying for shipping. Nobody will be paying for, clearing and all, extra, but there will be a cost to it. But let us also clear one thing. The government isn't removing subsidy. The government is fixing a new price. No, because see, if you need to remove subsidy, follow the PIA. It means that you will liberalize the market.
Okay, now,
so you're fixing price to accommodate shortfalls of your subsidy payment.
Just a second.
Because you will still fix price again.
Just to say this, Dr. Shibogo, is that to say that we have already begun to execute the PIA in breach?
No, we are just putting the cart before the horse. There's a transition process to this PIA.
Which
the Minister for Petroleum Resources, the Minister of State, inaugurated a committee for that. And part of the responsibility is in phases. You will take care of this. And the challenge is this. We have a budget of 2022, and there's the need to meet it up. There's a deficit position in that budget that needs to be accommodated. Yeah. Subsidy is a killer in that process. So the government on its own is in a hurry to address that anomaly. So what you need to do is to fix a price that will reduce the cost of subsidy you're paying. So if I'm paying now at 162 at pump rate, right, and there's 200 billion the government needs to pay, if we take it to 304, perhaps the government may be paying about 20 billion or 30 billion. And then the states who are always going cap in hand at every end of month to get allocation will have more to go home with. And mind you, we're just before the election year. So there's a lot of cost involved. INEC will need money to prepare for the elections.
All these INEC's problem at another time.
So that's why we say these are things that are pumping in the cost.
Just a second. My concern here, for both of you doctors, I said doctors.
Yes.
Doctors.
For both, my concern here is the alternative for the micro, small, and medium enterprises that you talked about earlier. What are the alternatives that they have? What are the chances that they have of surviving? You have told us on this platform once before that the average lifespan of a business, a small business in this country, is 5 years.
5 years.
By which time it could go down if some issues are not addressed for it. And one of the challenges, one of the costs that they're bearing is of power supply, which is usually, through this fuel supply that they get. So if the fuel subsidy is taken away, former head of state Abdulsalami Abubakar said it could push a lot more people into poverty. So what are the alternatives? How do we cushion the effect?
Let me address you on that. As at November, 220 billion simply means 2.2 billion, 2 trillion, 640 billion in a year. And I even said, let's assume we move to 300 billion a month. So it means in a year, you'll be talking about 3.6 trillion in a year. Now, the PIA, section 240, states that the settler will pay 3% to host community, 3% of their expenditure in the preceding year.
Expenses.
So what that section try to address is a situation where cost is overstated. You understand? Operating cost. So because what could happen is that capitalists can come together and gang up against the people and say, look here, our cost of production is 300 and we are going to sell at 320. And you know, if they agree, that will happen.
Dr. Lee,
But
you are
what,
still speaking to capitalists. Speak to the small business.
yes, so what will happen is that because you know you are going to pay 3% of this expenditure, the room for increase in price when we begin to produce locally will not happen. Now, the options available to small businesses, you have to now think of solar power for so many other things that you need to use. Now, government has to now come and say, and again, we come back to subsidy again, because if you want to help the people, how many of that pepper grinder can afford a solar panel, can afford an inverter?
But there was
battery?
that rural electrification program. There is a rural electrification agency. Isn't that
Ayo,
able
please
to...
don't humor us with that agency. Please don't
So-
humor us with that agency.
But they have reports that they are...
Ayo,
So
please
it's
do not
clear.
humor Nigerians.
It's
with
so
the
clear
electrification
to all
program.
of us, even you, Ayo, that as we speak, there is no alternative that we can point to. And this alternative can come only in form of public goods. There are intentions, but this intention cannot become reality within 6 months or 1 year. I hope you understand. That's why you hear that Rome was not built in a day. Infrastructure that we talk about has to take time. And then we don't even have culture of maintenance. Because you build, you
Dr.
maintain.
Ndoye, we're running out of time, and we still have some ground to cover. If we look at the amount of money paid as subsidy, it's as a result of the figure we are given as the number of liters that we consume in Nigeria.
Actually imported.
Imported, okay. But we know that most of our fuel goes to neighboring countries. So why can't we look to plugging those loopholes so that we can reduce the amount of subsidy that we are paying?
Well,
Is that not an option?
It's an option. Now, who are the agencies that are responsible for that? The customs, they are to man the border, the land borders. I think it is not difficult for government to do whatever they make up their mind to do. That's my belief. It is not difficult. Because PMS is not mosquito
You can't put it in your pocket.
that you just put in your pocket and you are exporting through the land borders. 33,000 liters of a vehicle, if it enters the premises of channels and you come to work, you will, obviously notice that something is there. So I think if we are serious and we want to pay subsidy only on what we consume here, so we can't say people should not export. But if you want to export, then you forfeit subsidy. Is that right? Now, we first address the issue of making sure there is no scarcity. And so if you bring in whatever number of liters of PMS into the country, or diesel or other products, and you intend to import, we can allow you and say, they don't have in Republic of Benin, we need to supply them. Okay. We will allow you, but if your subsidy for the month is supposed to be 100 million naira, and what you have exported has subsidy of 40 million, we will not pay you that. These things are possible.
Okay. Dr. Shibogo, I would like you to speak to not the capitalists that Dr. Ade has been voting for all morning, but to those vulnerable publics small businesses, micro businesses, businesses. Well, maybe the medium enterprises can be able to bear some of these costs, you know, on the one hand. And then the people, the average bus driver, you know, truck pusher and all those things.
Barber.
What are their alternatives? Barbers, thank you.
As we speak, even the large corporates are also feeling the pain. It's not about medium. It's a holistic issue, right? Across board, every business at the moment is challenged by one form of activity or the other. Mind you, we're trying to recover from the post-COVID activities. There were a series of interventions, including putting cash into the hands of businessmen and women by government, right? There've been also some form of, but the thing is, there will always be a ripple effect. There will always be a ripple effect. Our lives revolve around petroleum products. Is the truth. One, apart, there are two ways. One, we use it for our day-to-day activities. Then the other part is also the main revenue source for the government.
And that's
so that's where the dilemma
Doctor.
is. Because the government now is in a dilemma of, okay, if we try to remove this, what do we need to do for the people? I've heard this also humorous concept of giving people 5,000 naira for the next 12 months. Whether it's 6 or 12 or 1 year, I am still wondering. Because even when we did the conditional cash transfer of 25,000, there are stories around it that we've not been able to take care of. So the thing is, we must have a well-articulated program that can cater for the vulnerables. The vulnerables are not just, there are people who can't even afford to set up a pure water business with 2 sachets. These are the people we're talking about. And as we take on some very stringent economic measures, you are pushing more people towards that direction. So, and we should avoid a situation where we will have people coming on the streets as beggars, because they can't even, all they need is just something that starts from hand to mouth. That's what we're looking at. You see, you need to, it's a very difficult situation right now, because there's a dilemma.
And it is also difficult because we have run completely out of time and we haven't even finished what we have to say. Because what you have just said brings to mind, when we talk about fuel and fuel consumption, some people argue that it's only like 2% of Nigerians who have cars. And they forget that even those who don't have cars have to move from place to place. And whatever vehicle they're going to go in uses petrol. So it affects the life of every single Nigerian.
The discos rely on the oil and gas firms. They power with gas, right? So the average Nigerian who is relying on electricity today will either go buy that in his jerrycan and fuel his generator there, pass my neighbor generator. You spend an average of 6 to 7 liters in a day.
This conversation...
It just has to go on some other time. It will have to go on some other time. Dr. Monday Ashibogu, former PRO, Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, NASME, and Dr. Olubenga Adeoye, Chartered Accountant. Thank you very much. This conversation is by no means over. This is just the beginning of the conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you.
Sunrise will be right back in a moment.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, that's, of course, you've seen the topic. It's what we're talking about next. A recent report by Oxfam says that inequality is contributing to the death of at least 21,000 people each day, or 1 person every 4 seconds. Now, according to this information by Oxfam, the finding is based on the death globally from lack of access to healthcare, gender-based violence, hunger, and climate breakdown. We have to talk to us about this trend and how it can be reversed. Dr. Vincent Ahonsi, who is country director, Oxfam International. He joins us virtually from Ikorodu this morning. Thanks for joining us, Doc.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, this is most certainly staggering. A question anyone would want to ask first is, how did we come to this conclusion?
Thank you so much. We come to this conclusion. This is an evidence-based finding. We don't just wake up one day and say, this is what is happening. We did our research globally. We verify it, we authenticate it, and of course, we come to the conclusion that this is what is happening. And what is happening now is that every 4 seconds of the day, just like you have said, inequality contributes to the death of a human being. And we are not saying this for the fun of it. What is inequality that we are talking about? Inequality in the layman's language simply means the gap between the rich who are getting richer and the poor that are getting poorer every day. The rich that are stupendously getting richer, that have all things at their beck and call, and the poor that cannot even afford 3 square meals a day, just like we have discussed earlier today in your former program. So this gap has always been there, but never in the history of man has it become so obvious and so threatening to the security of the world, to the humanity itself, and to the planet. That is why Oxfam come forward and say, look, we need to let the people know that inequality in this case cannot continue. The governments of the world need to do something about it. Like I was saying, inequality is a thing that has always been there in some form, but the pandemic has now brought it to the fore in a more devastating way, in a more sobering way, and in a more pathetic way. Before COVID-19 struck, the 10 richest men in the world, if you put their collective wealth together, amounts to about $700 billion. I will tell you, between mid-2020, which is mid-March 2020, when the pandemic started, at least majorly in Africa, and now, they have doubled their wealth from $700 billion to $1.5 trillion. Now you ask me, what is the difference? The difference is that these 10 men are making, in the average, $1.5 billion every day. As if that is not sobering enough, millions and millions of people have been dragged from the middle class to the poverty equation. Now, can we bring that to Nigeria? What are we talking about? Let's bring it home. In Nigeria, the 3 richest men in Nigeria today, during the pandemic, between mid-March 2020 and now, they have increased their wealth by $6.9 billion. At the same time, 7.4 million people have now been dragged into extreme poverty, not ordinary poverty, extreme poverty. As I speak to you today, Sister Alero, the 2 richest people in Nigeria have more wealth than 63 million Nigerians at the bottom. And when we talk 63 million people, this can account for the population of maybe 4, 5, or 6 countries. That is what we're talking about. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And Nigerians now, before the pandemic, were called the capital of poverty in the world. Now, where are we? We are in a situation whereby our compatriots can no longer feed. Parents can no longer pay their children's school fees. Businesses are closing by the day. Farmers can no longer farm because of insecurity. Artisans can no longer run their business because Ikeja Electric has killed businesses in Ikorodu and environments and other places. And people are getting poorer and poorer by the day. This is not good for the polity. And government policy is not helping. Government policy is enabling the rich 1% to get richer and inadvertently enabling millions and millions of people to become poorer. We cannot be talking about how we are going to lift 100,000 people or 1 million.
But Doc, the question that one may want to ask is, well, you have talked to us now about some trajectory over the years. The question I want to ask is, how do we begin to reverse the trend? What are the structures that government needs to put in place? what are the investments that need to be made, and who is supposed to make these investments? Is it just the federal government or the state government? You know, things like that. What are the issues to consider concerning this matter?
The issues that need to be considered now is at various levels. Yes, the government holds the key, right? Now, what many Nigerians don't know is that IMF has been going around through the back door to communicate with West African countries to ask them to start implementing austerity as a way to get out of this pandemic.
Wow.
That is not the way. Austerity can only drag more people into poverty, more millions and millions of people into poverty. So what is the way out? The way out, one, is that the government of the day should have the political will to step forward and say, we want to implement programs and policies that will benefit the majority, not the minority. And the ways to do this is, one, we have tax incentives that are being given to corporations in Nigeria, and it has been estimated that as much as 2.9 billion US dollars are lost by the country, that is Nigeria, on annual basis to tax incentives. That is the money Nigeria needs to cater for the majority. Now, another thing I talked about earlier on is the fact that these billionaires have amassed so much wealth. Why does it become difficult, or why is it difficult for the government to tax the rich? We are advocating that let the rich pay more. It is time to tax the rich. Stop taxing the poor. VAT, you have increased it from 5% to 7.5%. And VAT applies to goods and services that are enjoyed by the people in the middle class or ordinary people on the streets. Now, please look beyond the poor people. Look beyond the man on the street. Look beyond the woman on the street. Look at the rich. Just introduce annual wealth tax, a progressive annual wealth tax. As we speak, we have about 4,960 Nigerians whose wealth are about $5 million US dollar or less. At least they are up to $5 million. We have 245 Nigerians whose wealth are up to $50 million US. We have Nigerians whose wealth are over $1 billion US. We are saying the government should introduce a tax, a wealth tax, annual wealth tax of 2% to those who have $5 million US dollar. Those who have $50 million US dollar in wealth, just give them 5% tax. And those whose wealth are over 1 billion, let them apply 10%. By so doing, the government of Nigeria will be making 6.1 billion US dollar extra money annually. Add that to the 2.9 billion US dollar that are going to be saved from canceling all these tax incentives to corporations. We're talking about 9 billion US dollar here. Now, tidy that up and look at what is the budget for the country. Now spend more on social amenities. Look towards creating the fiscal space, right, where there will be flexibility and the government will be able to achieve a sustainable, inclusive, and just recovery post-pandemic. This is what we are asking for. We are advocating for policies that will advance gender justice, that will reduce inequality, that will put the people and the planet first. What Nigerian government needs to do is to look at their political will. We shouldn't be practicing politics with people's well-being and welfare. It is not fair. No country develops like that. Now, the billionaires themselves need to step forward. A couple of days ago, some millionaires gathered themselves together and said the truth. They said, look, government, you are not taxing us enough. We have the money. We want to be taxed more. Stop taxing the poor. Nigerian billionaires need to add their voice to that. Applying 10% of tax to your wealth does not make you poor. This is not corporate social responsibility. We are talking about your legitimate civic responsibility to be taxed. The government should have the political will. They shouldn't say they are our friends. Okay. They are probably our political, maybe they fund our political campaign or something. We are not saying that, but they should look beyond friendship.
Okay,
look
Doctor,
at the majority of Nigerians.
Doctor, some would say that what you're advocating is an uphill task. The stats you gave about 2 billionaires having the kind of money that 63 million have is stark. I mean, what kind of social amenities would you have in place that would reduce that number, for instance, from 63 million to, say, 50 million, and begin to go down like that till you attain what you would consider as equality?
Thank you so much, Sister Lero. One thing is this. The government has to provide the enabling environment for small and medium enterprises to thrive. Not in paper, not as a campaign gimmick. We are saying the government should step forward. There's a policy that the government has established or that has implemented that is impacting more on people of this country. The government, I don't know whatever terminology they give, privatization, commercialization, or whatever, or eventually they gave out NEPA. NEPA was given out, and they said they are going to sell it to individuals. They sold them, and after selling them, they ended up with discos and guescos, and I think one of them is Nigeria Electric.
Discos and discos.
Right, or discos. Now, this is if you go around Nigeria, how you can develop the country is you can do it from the middle. A lot of people are small-scale entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. The artisans, the people who have cold rooms, who are selling fish, who are selling cold fish and all that. The people who have welding machines, the barbers, the tailors and all that. But what do we have? The government is not enabling them. First, when they try to establish their businesses, the local government jumps at them. And they are taxed here and there with about a dozen kind of taxes. As if that is not enough, we now have Ikeja Electric that is very powerful, sold to the rich and the powerful. And I will tell you, more businesses have folded up, have been closed by Ikeja Electric in the last couple of years than we can think of. On a daily basis, dozens of businesses, small-scale businesses, are closing up. And these people are being dragged into the poverty line. They cannot cater for their family. The government has to step up.
Okay,
this is time to put more money.
Well,
yes, please.
Dr. Ahansi, what are the elements in this inequality issue that we're talking about? You've talked about electricity as an element. I mean, at least from the I can just allude that that's perhaps what you're talking about now, some of the shortfalls. So what are some of those things, those items, those characteristics that come together to mean inequality and how it is killing? What are those elements? What are those features or factors that people need to consider when you talk about inequality?
Thank you so much. I think when you talk about inequality, like I said, it borders on a lot of things. First, the ability of the people to be able to access healthcare, quality healthcare. Nigerian healthcare system has always or has been in a very pathetic position over the years, unfortunately. Our health systems are very weak. They do not cater for our health system spending is very weak. The Nigerian budget for health, I think it was about 5% last time I checked. That is abysmally low. And Abuja Declaration says a minimum of 50% of your budget should go to health. Agriculture in this country at a point we are having a budget of as low as 2%. Social spending has been Nigeria is one of the worst countries in terms of social spending on infrastructure. The roads have become death traps. That we know. The environment is not secured. People can no longer walk in the night. People can no longer travel in the night. Goods and services can no longer move freely across the country. These are the elements we're talking about. The people are scared. The people are afraid to move around. In the past, people could easily move from the south to the north and from the north to the south. It's no longer like that. The farmers can no longer go to the field to farm because many of our farmers are small-scale farmers. And those who have ventured to go to the farm to go and farm, at the end of the year, it's either some cattle come and eat up their crops, or some kidnappers will come and kidnap them for ransom, rape their wives, destroy their farmlands, and that has distorted the whole ecosystem, and they can no longer do this. A lot of people are now migrating to the cities to become Okada riders. And what is the government doing? What is the response we are getting from the government? We are hearing of palliatives. We are hearing of empowerment. It is so pathetic when government workers, when political office holders, when legislators now come and say, okay, they are giving palliatives, and they go out there, buy 5 kilos of rice or 2 kilos of rice and label it and start giving it to Nigerians as if Nigerians are now beggars. That is the laziest and most unfortunate and most callous way to treat your fellow compatriots. And some even go to those who are higher amongst them will go to the point of buying a clipper or a wheelbarrow and give to an able-bodied young man, and you say you are empowering him. That is sad. How do we get here? The government has got to pick up his thinking cap and wear it. Enough of listening to all these praise singers. Enough of quoting figures that are not existing.
Doctor,
we want to see.
Doctor,
yes,
it does appear that your advocacy now, the object of your advocacy, seems to be government. Because all the things you're talking about now, it seems that it is the government who's supposed to do all these things for the people. Am I correct, sir?
Thank you, Sister Alero. Our advocacy is majorly to the government because the government holds the stick and the carrot. That is it. We still advocate to the rich people to, it's like we are appealing to their conscience and say, look, you are not taking this wealth to wherever you are going after this lifetime. If you start eating dollar bills, don't eat rice, don't eat pounded yam, just put dollar bills or naira bills into your plate and eat it every day. You will never finish eating your money in your lifetime. What do you need it for?
Okay.
Go to Abuja Airport.
Okay.
Yeah. So the advocacy is majorly government because the government is not having the political will to tax the rich. Why is it difficult for the government to do this? The government is of this country. It is easy for the government to tax the poor, but they are finding it difficult to tax the rich. That is, the government should be defending the poor. I tell you something, Sister Alero. The 1% richest people in the world, they emit more than 50%. Their carbon dioxide emissions is double that of 50% people that are at the bottom of the ladder, right? But the effect of climate change is felt by the poor. Go to the north, travel from Abuja down to Sokoto to Kano, you see what climate change is doing to the people, right? And yet, they are telling us that these billionaires are creating jobs. They are not creating jobs, as far as I know. If you want to create jobs, you have to create jobs that will be meaningful, green jobs that people will be able to do and have source of livelihood that can take care of their families. Not jobs that will put them in penury, not jobs that will endanger their lives.
Doc,
Nigerian billionaires need to step forward and speak. We want to hear their voice.
The question then
What
is
do they have to
how will that be taken on? How are they going to also form a body called like Patriotic Billionaires, or is it Patriotic Millionaires in the US?
Of Nigeria.
Or is it just going to be Patriotic Millionaires in Nigeria? I don't know. How would you propose that they do that?
I would propose that Nigerian billionaires should step forward. Like we say in Nigeria, in the balance of it, we say everything is 6 feet. At the end of the day, whether you are rich or you are poor, it's 6 feet. They have to step forward. Oxfam is willing to facilitate a meeting of the billionaires in Nigeria. We want to hold meetings with them. We want to tell them how to do it. We want to assure them that paying tax does not mean that they are going to become poor. We want to assure them that the society is not going to become socialist. We want to assure them that we are there with them. We want to assist the government. How can the government plug all these loopholes? We are talking about, earlier on, we were talking about fuel subsidy. For God's sake, people that cannot even afford to pay 100 naira for Okada, by the time you double the price of fuel, then how do they get 200 naira to climb Okada? People that cannot feed their children. By the time you double up on all these things, all these austerity measures, you are going to drag millions more of Nigerians into poverty. By and large, we have not even talked about the effect on women. That is another big one, right? Women and girls, they have been suffering in this country, not only in Nigeria, but Nigerians' case is so pathetic. And everything we do, we tend to forget women. The pandemic has set women back. Initially, there's inequality between men and women. We know it. We say it's going to take 99 years for women to catch up with men. Women collectively lost over $800 billion in wealth due to the pandemic. 1 million women lost their income. They lost their job. And when women lose their job, they lose their income, they kind of lose their voice. And in a patriarchal society like Nigeria, where women unfortunately are being regarded as part of personal property to men, it is so unfortunate. More women are going to be subjected to sexual and gender-based violence because their voice is lost. They can no longer go to the farm to farm because people are there to kidnap and rape them. We have to shine light on them because these are our mothers, these are our sisters, these are our daughters.
Doctor, you said Oxfam is ready to facilitate a meeting of these rich people. Are you not being presumptuous? Because that would presuppose that you are assuming that these people are actually interested in reversing the trend.
Sister Alero, one thing we kind of say in Nigeria is, if you appeal to my conscience, yeah, because you can't just really claw the money out of their hands. It's only government that can really tax them appropriately in a progressive way. But in Nigeria, we are very religious in this country. We are either a very good Christian, or you are a good Muslim, or you are a good traditionalist. So you have a conscience. We are appealing to their conscience and saying, look, for goodness sake. That is why I made mention of the fact of 6 feet. At the end of the day, whether you have all the mansions, you have all the private jets in Abuja, you are not going to be buried with any one of them. Let's appeal to their conscience. Look, your fellow men and women are dying on a daily basis. They are dying of disease. They are dying of hunger. I saw a mother losing a child because of 1,500 naira in Kano. Very unfortunate. Not sorry, in Jibia in Katsina State, very close to Niger State. That was the first place I saw patients and I shed tears. You see children who are 8 months old, they are looking as if they are 80 years old due to malnutrition. These are our compatriots. We shouldn't just be approaching them when we need their votes. It is a moral burden on all of us who call ourselves Nigerians.
Okay.
To be eating, to be sleeping, to have this obscene wealth, and yet our brothers and sisters are dying on daily basis.
Well,
It
Doctor,
is unfortunate.
my apologies.
We're something we have to.
We're running out of time, but I'd like you to address 2 issues very, very quickly. You talked about, women the other time. How do you, let's talk about the young people, the youths. How does this issue of inequality, how does it affect them, and how can they help?
Thank you so much. I particularly feel for Nigerian youth. In our time, things were not like this. Nigerian youths have got to a point where they are so hopeless and so helpless, unfortunately. Now you now see graduates who have good certificates just roaming the streets. 4 or 5 years, no job, no hope, and nothing. And nobody seems to be talking about it. A former president once said that this is a time bomb. Nigeria is not doing enough for these young people. We said this is the hope of the future. The hope of the future that we are not catering for, that we are not thinking about. It is high time we have to step forward. We have to have a roadmap, not on paper. We have to have a strategy to lift our youths. How do we train them, those who need to be trained? We are talking about human capital development. How do we train them to be able to key into the ICT world? The tomorrow for billionaires, or the tomorrow of this world, is in the tech business. How do we practically do able things with timelines, and at the same time we have to have monitoring metrics? How can we develop programs that can lift these young ones off the streets? They are very energetic. They are willing to do something.
Okay.
The government is not thinking about it. So when it comes to the women, the youth of this country, my heart does for them and my heart goes to them. The country needs to, the government needs to do more for them. The
Okay.
government is not doing enough.
All right. Just one last thing, Dr. Honey. There is a reference in that report. By the way, the report were under review, so to speak, is Inequality Kills by Oxfam. You can, just check it out online. Just type it, Inequality Kills, and then you can find out the one that's been done by Oxfam and take a look at what he is talking about. Now, you referenced in that report some measure of politics. It's a political year in Nigeria, and people are going to be deciding who they want as their governors in a good number of states and presidents come 2023. What are the things you would suggest, in line with what we are discussing now, that people should factor in when they are making a decision?
I think as we have gradually approached the election year, what Nigerians should be looking at is, please, for goodness sake, look beyond the man that will bring a bag of rice to you. Look beyond the man that will bring 5,000 naira to you. Let's look at those who are capable, those who have the desire to help Nigeria, those who have the programs. Don't look at wealth, please. Don't look at those who have been there before. We have gone through this for too long. If it's going to take a 35-year-old man, a poor woman, to fix this country, let us look at their direction.
Okay.
And INEC should try to de-emphasize money politics so that those who are capable and who are able to do it will be able to step forward. Enough of this doing the same thing and expecting new results. It cannot happen.
Okay.
And lastly, please, we have to tackle our sexist laws in this country that discriminate against women and girls. Unfortunately, a senator in this country introduced a bill at the floor of the Senate, and every time she does, it gets thrown away. And what the legislators don't know is that as they throw it away along with millions and millions of women out there. Okay. Nigerian women deserve more than that.
Well,
Nigerian women are not property.
I'm very sure, Dr. Hansi, that we have not heard the last of that particular legislation. I'm pretty sure that each time you talk about women here, my colleague here is thumbing up for you. 2 thumbs up, actually, to ensure that, just so you know that she's speaking for that gender. But for now, we have to thank you very much for bringing this to light and hoping that people will key into it. Dr. Vincent Ahonse is Country Director, Oxfam International. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Right, so we're back after now. It's time to talk some more about some other thing. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. All our topics so far all seem to be tied together. Talking about subsidy and what government has to do and all that. And one of the things that government has to do is to provide housing for people. Whether it is cheap or not is not the issue right now. Just provide housing.
Other than under the bridge.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have Shelter Afrique with us in the studio, and Shelter Afrique is a Pan-African institution that exclusively supports the development of the housing and real estate sector in Africa. And guess what? They're coming to Nigeria. Here. It's our pleasure to welcome the Managing Director of Shelter Afrique. He's also the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Andrew Chiponda.
Good morning, Alero, and your viewers. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Well, your coming is wonderful news to us because, you are coming because you have heard of the housing deficit in Nigeria. True or false?
It's very true. It's very true.
So we do welcome you with open arms, as we say in this part.
Thank you.
But Shelter Afrique has been in other countries in Africa, and our housing problems are not new. So why are you deciding to come into Nigeria at this point in time?
Wow. At this point in time, I have to say that firstly, thank you for having me. I'm very privileged to be here today. So Shelter Afrique, just to give you a perspective, it's been in existence for 40 years, since 1981. and it actually has done some business in Nigeria. We've approved 53 projects in Nigeria to date, worth about $191 million. That's what we approved. But we found that even though we've approved the projects, we were only able to pay out 88 million of that, $88 million to 23 projects. And of course, that has been because of issues to do with foreign exchange risk, where we give money in US dollars, but the counterparties or our clients take that money in dollars, but they're lending in Naira. Then when there's a devaluation, it's a problem. So that low take-up has been a result of clients not being able to have a hedging mechanism that's affordable to be able to cater for that foreign exchange problem. So despite that history, we are now deciding, yes, we want to come to Nigeria now. And it's not a coincidence. It's a deliberate strategy or strategic direction we've been given by our board to say, you can't do business in Africa if you're not focused purely on Nigeria, the largest economy in Africa, the third largest populous country in the world, but in Africa, the most populous. So we look and we say Nigeria, 200 million people. We expect through our Center of Excellence, it will be up to even double 400 million people by 2050, which coincides with the population boom. So you have to, if you are serious about addressing housing in Africa, you have to take a serious look and a focused look into the beautiful country of Nigeria.
For some of the, I'm pretty sure that, of course, it's a business for you, so, but before you come into any environment, you must have done some, I don't know if the word is due diligence.
Yeah, due diligence.
It's the right word. So the question I would want to ask is, what are some of those challenges that you have seen in the housing and real estate sector, you know, especially in Nigeria, and what are the options you're proposing?
Okay. So you're right. We operate, to give you a perspective, across 45 countries. As Shelter Afrique, we're a Pan-African institution, and we have a strategy for each country. So one of the things we've done is we have a Center of Excellence that has done a study of Nigeria, but beyond that, we also work in collaboration, and we build smart partnerships with local institutions as well that are on the ground. But the first thing is the deficit of housing. It's a big problem. It's a big challenge. But to us, we consider it a crisis. Why do we consider it a crisis? It's because through our Center of Excellence, which is actually run by a Nigerian Dr. Muhammad Gambo, we estimate the shortage of housing in Africa at 56 million units. 56 million units. So maybe at an average of, let's say, $25,000 a house, that's about $3 trillion you need to resolve the African shortage. But now if you go down, country by country, and we come to Nigeria, the shortage, and these are figures since even 2017, it was sitting at 17 million. If you factor in population growth rate and urbanization, people, the rural-urban migration, you're probably sitting at 22 million units. But can you see that with the overall shortage of 56 million, Nigeria has the biggest challenge in terms of housing deficit. If you were to compare with the likes of Ghana, close by is 1.7 million units. Kenya in East Africa, it's about 2 million units. If you go to DRC, Congo, it's 3 million units. South Sudan, 4 million units. So can you see that when you look at the continent as a whole, we have a bigger shortage? Albeit all those numbers are debatable, but we have a bigger housing problem because of two main factors. That is the population growth rate. I mean, we estimate by 2050, Africa currently at 1.3 billion will double its population to about 2.5 billion. But what does that mean for ordinary Nigerians? As the population is growing and as you are getting rural to urban migration, currently the urbanization, people in urban areas are actually 50%. So at the current population, 100 million are in the urban areas. but every year you have rural-urban migration of about 6%, so that starts to grow. And what interests us as Shelter Afrique is we want to contribute to, let's call it, providing a solution through large-scale but low-cost housing, so that as people are coming in, they are also being housed. Because if you don't deal with the housing problem in a deliberate manner, you're going to have a proliferation of slums. And that is obviously never good. So we work very closely with the Minister of Works and Housing, Honorable Raji Babatunde Fashola, SAN. We work very closely, and we actually, Nigeria is a shareholder of Shelter Afrique, interestingly enough, the second largest shareholder. And when the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Honorable Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, pays the capital that she's committed, Nigeria will be the largest shareholder of Shelter Afrique. So we look and we say, what is Nigeria doing about housing? Is it serious? We see a government that is serious. Why? Because it set up institutions to try to deal with that. Family Homes Fund, Nigeria Mortgage Refinance Company. You also see, obviously, the Federal Mortgage Bank and many, many others.
So is that saying that the, people, the average Nigerian can come to Shelter Afrique for some intervention?
Well, the average Nigerian cannot come to Shelter Afrique for an intervention because we are a wholesale market maker. So what do we do as Shelter Afrique? We look and we say, what are the government plans for housing? Post-COVID, there was the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan to deliver 300,000 housing units, low cost, large scale, which was, and I think it's obviously still in progress because this was 2020, which was going to generate jobs in the tune of 1.8 million and of course benefit about 1.5 million Nigerians. So what we do is we come in and we now say, okay, fine, we will provide lines of credit to banking institutions. Why are our lines of credit unique? Is because we provide long tenures, which other commercial banks cannot provide. We can provide even 10-year lines of credit, etc. We try to provide competitive interest rates so that they can take that money and now provide mortgage loans as the off-take. That is on the demand side. What we then do is on the supply side, we will fund developers through project finance, either through another bank or directly through to the developers, so that now they can take that money and build housing units. So that's how we intervene to contribute. And we can also, provide partnerships, as in provide lines of credit to the likes of Family Homes Fund or even Federal Mortgage Bank in itself. Yes. And we're part and parcel of also the conceptualization of the Nigeria Mortgage Refinance Company to be able to kickstart and develop the mortgage industry in the country. Maybe just a point of note when I talk mortgages. I just wanted to make a point that we measure country by country through our Center of Excellence, the mortgage penetration to GDP. And you'll be interested to know that Nigeria's is 0.5%. But to contextualize it, South Africa is 16%. Then when you go to America, Australia, all these Western countries, it's 80%. So we look and say
80,
yes. That is interesting.
Wow.
So what does that tell you? It tells you that there is a huge opportunity to provide mortgages. It also tells you that perhaps mortgages and home ownership is not the only solution. Maybe we should have other products. Maybe rent to buy, buy to let, rental product, as long as people are living in decent, housings, because that's their human right constitutionally. And also, it also tells you that, there's more that can and will and need to be done to support housing through incremental loans, etc., and stuff like that. So those are the things that interest us as Shelter Afrique. I think it's a moral obligation that all our brothers and sisters have access to decent homes. And our vision is clear as Shelter Afrique, to provide decent and affordable homes for all Africans.
Mr. Chipondo, you said you work with governments as well as developers.
Yes.
Do these developers have any kind of parameters as to what kind of houses they can provide?
Yes.
Do you give them any?
So, well, I would say that a developer, Alero, wants to maximize development profit. So what we do is we are very prescriptive in our funding. To say we're not looking for a developer that wants to develop high-end houses.
Luxury,
Yes. And
luxury houses.
retire on one or two houses through that profit, etc. So what we do is we try to encourage developers to have the mindset to focus on, of course it has to be commercially viable, but to look at scale. So we try to target developers that do 1,000 units and above in terms of houses. So they're
that's the minimum.
Minimum,
1,000.
Yes.
Okay. So if you're watching, 1,000.
Exactly. And then we now challenge them and we say, through public-private partnerships, sometimes we can, get land, etc. But when they've got access to good-priced land, to say, why can't you develop a house for, let's say, $10,000? 5 million naira to even 20 to 30,000, because at the end of the day, if you drive the cost down, the biggest problem we have in the whole of Africa, Alero, is affordability. Our brothers and sisters do not have access to houses because they can't afford the houses on the market. I'm now talking in general terms. And then access to affordable financing. So we as Shelter Afrique, we try to change that mindset to say, come to us, but we are interested to know the beneficiary. At what cost are you going to sell that house at? If it's mortgages, at what interest rate? Because the biggest challenge you have on access is sometimes interest rates can go up to 25%. Of course, you have the fund that will provide at 6%. So we at Shelter Afrique, we are changing a mindset. We are trying to, and we are the only institution, by the way, that exclusively focuses on housing, which is low cost and large scale. And that's in line with our mission.
Low cost, large scale. Interesting. I hope, Shelter Africa has also factored in the huge poverty challenge in Africa.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with that? How is that factored in to the whole dynamic?
Well, you see, it is a challenge when you talk poverty. And it's even worsened by COVID-19, where more people have lost jobs. So we as Shelter Afrique, we've done our research through, again, our Center of Excellence in collaboration with UN Habitat. And we've realized that investing in housing and infrastructure, it's a key ingredient to kickstart economies in Africa, because housing creates jobs, and there's also a lot of other downstream benefits. And we believe that the only way you can handle the poverty issue is to provide an enabling environment to create more jobs through housing so that people are employed, and then that reduces the poverty. Not only does it reduce the poverty, it also increases the contribution of housing to GDP, and it also stimulates economic growth. So poverty is always there, but it's about how do you reduce it, how do you make a contribution so that you reduce the unemployment rates in the countries that we operate in.
Okay. So one of the things that Shelter Afrique seeks as you come in to Nigeria is to woo investors ahead of your first time bond issuance in this year.
Correct.
Talk to us about that.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ayo. In fact, apart from eating the beautiful jollof rice and,
At least we have a confirmation.
Yes, it's the best.
Nigeria's jollof rice is top notch. Go ahead.
It is
we will install the plaque somewhere around.
Okay. Okay, it's okay. So for us, we, through our board-approved plan, we're a very customer-centric organization. So when I mentioned that less than 50% of the monies approved to Nigeria was taken up because of this foreign exchange risk problem, we then decided to say, let's come into Nigeria and issue a local currency bond. We are coming in to issue an equivalent of 250 billion naira or 500 million medium-term note bond, where we will now launch that bond by March. We will get this 250 billion coming from pension funds and other institutions, and we're going to direct that exclusively to low-cost, large-scale housing. But what is unique is that we will be providing loans in local naira. So you're not going to have the problem of foreign exchange risk, because we are matching the loans to what our clients will be also using to loan out, whether it's mortgages or whether it's project finance. So that's very, very exciting. The Security Exchange Commission has approved our prospectus, and we are looking to launch this very exciting program by March of 2022, God willing.
Okay, so can we safely assume that you are working with the federal government, developers, as well as state governments? Because the issue of land in Nigeria,
yes,
it is state governments who own the land.
Yes.
So if you're coming in and you want to actually, no, let me ask the question first before I jump to conclusions. Are you actually going to build these low-cost houses yourselves when the bond matures?
Yes. So I must say your question is a good one. It is not negotiable that we have to work at federal and state level. So, in terms of our, let's call it engagements, as I said initially, we have engaged with the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Honorable Babatunda Raji Fashola, SAN. In terms of the SEC approval, Security and Exchange Commission approval, we've had massive support by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed. So we work with them. So now when we go further and you say, how then is the money going to be deployed? So what we're doing is we work with the likes of REDAN, the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria. We have an MOU through them to deliver 6,000 units across 6 regions to cover. So those developers who are members of REDAN, of course, will have to assess each project, it must be viable, etc. We will provide them financing through project finance. We will also work with big developers. I can call them maybe tier 1 developers, the likes of maybe Mixit, Brains and Hammer, but big developers to give, because they already have the land banks.
So
but we give them.
My apologies for butting it. This is your website.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Okay, this is your website.
Yes.
This is some of the information people can find out on your website.
Oh yes, yes, definitely, yes. Okay, that's our website. Yeah.
So, how do people come in? What can people get done on your website? What are the things that they can? What are the benefits they can get on your website now? And perhaps in line with the question Alera asked earlier.
All right. So, okay. So on our website, what they can get to find out is if they are developers that are looking for financing, they can look to see what are the conditions or the checklist of what they need to have to apply for financing. Okay. That is, I think, a key benefit. If these are developers or even tier 1 or tier 2 financial institutions. If they are developers that want to work out in a region, what is the right selling price for my housing unit, etc. We also have developed in November of 2021 an affordability calculator which can work out in a specific region what is the right price point for housing. And beyond that, they can also look through our Center of Excellence, look at alternative building technology throughout the whole of Africa. Now you have, as you know, 3D printing. They can look at the works that's been done on 3D printing. You have a lot of other initiatives, etc. So they can look at that and see what projects we are doing across the whole of Africa.
It sounds to me like the 3D printing thing. I did a little bit of research on it, and I don't know if Alero will be happy to live in a house that is printed. It's completely run out of time. So.
So all we can do at this point is to wish you all the best with your bond offering.
Thanks, Alero.
In March.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Andrew Chimponda,
Yes.
Group Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Shelter Afrique.
Thank you, Alero, and thank you for your viewers for listening to me today. And Ayo, it's been a pleasure as well talking to you both. And I look forward to coming back to tell you about the results of our bond raise. We believe it will be successful, God willing, and we don't take this time you've given us for granted. Thank you, and God bless you both.
The only thing that I'll probably be looking forward to is, are you going to be bringing one of those printed houses? Don't answer that question. Well, just before we take this break, we may be moving away from the DSTV platform now, but then that's, of course, for Open Square, a live broadcast, but we'll give you more information about that in due course. Sunrise is back after now. Thanks for staying with us. Of course, that's the topic that we're looking at now, the rice pyramids. I only remember the groundnut pyramids, but I guess we'll get to that. In the course of the week, the president unveiled Africa's largest rice pyramids as part of the event marking the Rice Festival and the launch of the 2021-2022 dry season production. Of course, the president has assured that Nigerians, he's assured Nigerians that the price of rice in the Nigerian market is expected to fall with the launch of 13 pyramids of rice paddy. I want to be a farmer, but I'm not one yet. So we have a farmer to help us decrypt the figures. Yes. And everyone we're all supposed to have all hands on deck. Or is it all hands on land now? We'll talk about that later. African farmer Mogaji joins us this morning. He is chairman of Agriculture and Agro-Allied Group of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. I'm now immediate past.
Immediate past.
Yeah, a dynamic lady has just taken over from.
Dynamic lady has just taken over.
A lady?
Yeah.
Well done, lady.
Why am I not surprised that Alero is excited about that? But, so, the rice pyramids. To some it is exciting, to some it's, what is this? What is it to you?
Well, the fact that we're producing is exciting. But that we're using pyramids, it's something to be concerned about. Why do I say we should be concerned about it? The average 45-year-old who was given birth to in the north cannot say they've seen a rice pyramid before, because the pyramids have gone extinct 45 years ago.
So what would you be using, silos?
Silos. The former Minister of Agriculture, the current AFDB president, facilitated the building of silos. So Abuja has 100,000, metric tons of silos. So if the world has moved to silos, and guess what? We have the silos across the regions. Why are we building pyramids? If in fact the risk is high using pyramids, especially with climate change. And in Lagos on Monday, I think it rained. It rained on Monday in Lagos. And we're not expecting rainfall from the prediction till end of January. We'll just have 1 or 2. So my question is, just imagine the day it was launched. Climate change, what that means is that the rains will not come when it should come. And, if it rains that day, what happens to all those rice? What happens to our rice security? These are conversations that we need to begin to have. If it's in the silo, no matter the rain, it doesn't affect it. But we took too much risk that day. Too much risk. We are not paying attention to global trends, which is climate change. It's a good thing that we can produce the rice.
Well, thankfully it didn't rain.
Yeah, thankfully
So
it
the
didn't
rice
rain.
festival has come and gone.
Yes.
But the president says that it means that the price of rice is going to fall in the market. Your thoughts on that?
Well, don't forget, it's what the data they give the president that the president will actually read out.
Yep.
That's what they gave to him. So, but the thing is, so let me give you a little background. I grew up in the 80s with my dad running 700-acre rice farm in Ekiti. We combine harvesters, working, milling. So I have a good grasp, and I'm trained as an agri-expert also. It wouldn't affect
The price of rice.
the price of rice.
Why do you say that?
Because when you do the math around the fact that, 1 million bags, if I'm right, of rice that was produced. So 1 million bags of rice at 100 kg, that's 100 million metric tons. 100 million kg. 1,000 kg is 1 ton, meaning that's about 100,000 metric tons, if the data is right. So bottom line is that Lagos would consume that just like that.
Stop discouraging us now. This man, how
So
far?
bottom line is that
So you're saying Lagos can consume 100 metric tons of rice
just
in
like that.
how many days?
We do that. Christmas, Ileya period will consume this. And that's just one side. So
Just for the Lagos market?
just for the Lagos market. So if it's
God.
truly
How
a
discouraging.
1 million bags of rice, even if it's 10 million. So the data, if you work the data back, we've done a good job. But in terms of our food security,
It's nothing.
It can push it down for a little while. But also, my concern is that government has spent a lot of money, I use the word wooing, not attracting, wooing investors to invest in the value chain of rice. Many people have put their houses on mortgage. Many people have taken loans. Many investment has happened there. So when you push that rice into the market, the people who have taken loans from investors and banks will cry. Why? Because they did proposals, business plans to go into that cultivation. And so more like you're going to be dumping against what you've encouraged. So bottom line is that, yes, let's use the word, the common man can be happy they have rice, but the investors that has been encouraged over the last 7 years, it's bad news for them.
I don't
Mr.
understand.
Mogaji.
My apologies, Anero. I don't understand. So it's bad news for them means...
It means that, so the ones that have produced, that are currently having their rice in storage to mill maybe 2-3 months' time, and now you go and dump in the market, you release it to the millers to mill. What happens to the genuine investors? To the people who have taken loans from banks that have projected that we will sell the rice at so price, the price will go down. So what that means is that many of them will not be able to meet the projection.
But Mr. Mogaji, you know how these things work in Nigeria. Prices, when they go up in Nigeria, hardly go down.
Go down.
So no matter how many tons of rice is poured into the market, can you actually see the price going down?
See, the thing is that the rice will be ordered. That the millers will audit. It's election year. There's a agribusiness has its dynamics in election year. Some of us have leveraged it for about 16 years. There's a difference between campaign year and election year. So there's a 15 months window for practitioners to leverage. So what will happen is politicians will spend money for stomach infrastructure. It goes along with the game. So what that means is that this rice will be mopped up and stored
Until next year.
Until next year. And don't forget, this is a campaign year. So one senator, one honorable, one chairman, all of them would have quota to say 1,000 bags must come to my local government. So when they mill it, it's meant for campaign. Even though, to be fair on federal government, they mean well. They mean well. But the implementation is not likely to go down like that.
Mr. Mogaji, since we have you here and we're talking rice, is there has been a ban on imported rice. Mm-hmm. Is there still imported rice in Nigerian markets?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So some of us operate projects around border areas, including the north. So we still have these things coming in.
Okay.
And even if you go to the market, the price of foreign rice and local rice is almost the same. Local rice is even more expensive.
That's where I was going. That there's foreign rice in the market, and sometimes the local rice is even more expensive than the smuggled imported rice. Why is that so?
So, if you check...
government wants us to eat Nigerian rice.
Yeah.
So how come the one that they want us to eat, the one that is ours, that was not purchased with foreign exchange...
And that didn't pay import duty and all...
is more expensive?
It's the cost of production, economics of production. So last year, the tractor operations increased.
What do you mean tractor operations?
So you want to rent a tractor to work for you. The prices went up by like 30%. Agrochemicals to prevent weeds. And to protect from insects also went up by 20-30%. Fertilizer last year was practically almost not available. So the cost of production is going up. So as the cost of production is going up, and that is where funds need to go to. If you fund that value chain, then we'll be competitive.
Well, the president in that interview with Channels Television talked about the intervention of the federal government into this issue. He talked about importing tractors. He talked about even these fertilizers that you mentioned and all of that. So isn't that in any way helpful on its own?
So you see, there is what is planned and there is the real thing. So you see, last year was really, really challenging for practicing farmers. So I like to, I analyze, but I'm a practitioner. If you go around, if you feel the vibes, go around, go everywhere. Good intentions, good budgeting, they release the funds, but did it get to the people? Farmers. In fact, there's a particular bank that raised alarm also that when we're talking, BVNs, the anchors get the BVNs, present to the banks, goes to CBN filters, so they fund. The farmers don't touch the money, but the farmers didn't get the incentives through the anchor. But it was their BVNs they used to access. So when CBN came with reviewing or revising the operations of the anchor, it was based on some findings. So government means well. CBN means well, but there's a challenge where CBN is missing it. And that's why we need to talk about this. You don't see, I stand to be corrected, but the Minister of Agriculture was not, part of the flagging off. The Minister of Water Resources, the name was not mentioned in the pictures, except maybe the papers didn't report it accurately.
How important is that?
So, the mechanism in which the federal government and even CBN will reach out to the farmers is through the Ministry of Agriculture. The only platform where you can do dry season is the Ministry of Water Resources. Those are the river basins. So any dry season program only happens on the river basins. So if we're not seeing the Minister for Water Resources, we're not seeing the Ministry of Agriculture, and we're only seeing RIFAN. RIFAN is just an association. We're not even seeing the president of AFAN All Farmers Association there. RIFAN is a component of All Farmers Association. So it means that very crucial, apparatus of government was not actively involved. And I've tried to apply also for anchor borrower before, which I always say I give it to Mr. Mefele, if it's a doctor. It's a well thought out program. But implementation really needs to be reviewed. So the Ministry of Agriculture is not fully involved. ADPs are involved, but in terms of budgeting for monitoring and evaluation, in the production cost, you won't really find it there. And when you see World Bank projects, monitoring and evaluation takes a good chunk, because for the project to come out, not just to complete the project, but basically to be able to for future planning and implementation, you do this thing. So the Ministry of Agriculture, the minister was not there, at least in the pictures. Ideally, the minister should be to the left or to the right of Mr. President. So it shows that there's a gap there. And if you go around the country, that gap is there. So sustainability may have some issues.
So then, I was going to ask you about sustainability. Does that, if this assumption you're making, or this position you're taking now, that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is not fully involved, we saw some state governors, at the event. So one wonders if that doesn't count for something, because as we discussed in the earlier topic of housing deficit, it's the governors that have a bearing on the lands.
But when it comes to dry season program, it is federal that owns a majority of the land and are farmed extensively in the north, across the country. So it's the river basins mostly owned by federal government, not the state. But the state can also deploy resources in helping to making sure that, because the farmers reside in the state. So yes, it helps, but how much rice, apart from like Jigawa, I used to farm in Jigawa, Yamidi, to put that out so that, there's no anki-panki around it. Yes, Jigawa, yes, Ekiti is also a core rice producing state, but how much rice is produced in the states of the governors currently that showed up? But if their coming is to project, to, encourage them to invest and support it, well taken.
Are you saying that Cross River State doesn't have any significant,
So Cross River has an ultra-modern seed production, to germinate. It actually helps rice farmers, take away the drudgery in it. But in terms of the size, I'm not sure they have it. But in terms of the technology to make it happen, they have invested heavily in it. But is it fully embraced by neighboring states? That's where we need to really be talking about. One governor comes with a brilliant idea, like the governor in Cross River. But other governors, are they embracing it? Because the ultra-modern facility he has is for everybody, not just for the state. So we don't have regional buy-ins into most of those projects, and that's why we have where we are. And that's why even CBN, if they come out to let you know, it's a burden that the states are not embracing this infrastructure, this opportunity that CBN is throwing on the table.
You spoke to the fact that we seem to be working in silos.
Yes.
It's a program of the CBN. One would expect, the Anchor Borrowers program, being an agricultural initiative, will be heavily embraced by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the Federal Ministry of Water Resources that you talked about. It raises a question on my mind. We've had this kind of initiatives over the years, and I think in the research that I checked out, we've had interventions to sustain agricultural programs in our country, such as this one, and for example, since 1959, with the Farmers Settlement Scheme
yes.
of the pre-colonial or colonial masters at the time, or even the politicians that eventually took over. So, and over the years, I have seen successive governments, at different times, always wanting to sustain this program. So, are you saying okay, let me not, put you in trouble if I can use that term. But how do we sustain this? Let it not just be another flash in the pan. There are those pundits out there who are saying, look, this is a terminal project simply because the bags have the name of the president today on it. That means that by June 2023, those rice are extinct, so to speak. Does that mean that the program is also extinct? So how do we sustain such brilliant initiatives? You are praising the CBN for the intervention. How do we sustain that kind of intervention so it's not just terminal to one government, it is something that is sustained for as long as possible?
The business models, that's number one. We must embrace business models that work with our environment.
Whose business models? When you talk about business model, don't forget you're talking about businessmen here.
Okay, so
government is not in the business of business, is it?
Yeah, but take for instance the model where the anchor would gather like 20,000 farmers, 40,000 farmers, 50,000 farmers. The anchors don't even know the farmers. So it's better if you have an anchor of 50, 100, 200 farmers. They stay in the same local government. They know each other's homes. They can track each other. That is what will work. So, and the millers are in every local government. You see, come rain, come shine, without government interventions, the local millers will mill. The rural farmers will plant. So, should we be scaling the local millers as against bringing new people to compete with them? See, when we're talking about these things, when, there was a broadcast where it was said that the middlemen were the problem of food security. The middlemen have more stake in agriculture than even the government. Because if the farmers don't bring produce to them, they don't earn money. True. They don't live. And they've been the ones funding the farmer. So when the farmer needs money, they go to the middlemen. I did this in Jigawa. I did this in Gombe. When you cannot afford the chemicals, you can't afford a lot of things, you go take a loan from the middleman who will take back the crop from you. So instead of fortifying these institutions so that we can regulate them, we kind of project them as evils. But they've been funding this sector for years. Let me just paint it. When you take like tomatoes, you say, they're just buying, or rice, they're buying the rice, they're buying from farmers. They're no longer buying, the middlemen are no longer buying from farmers. The middlemen are giving them seeds to plant, giving them money, and taking a portion of the yield back as repayment. Now, the middlemen now have bought trucks for logistics. So that was why when along the line last year, they said we're not bringing some food to some areas in the country.
To the south,
it was effective because they control the value chain. Government does not control the value chain. If government is going to improve on that, they have to fund the existing guys so they can regulate them. So it's a lot of things that...
If that is to be done, but my apologies, Salera. If that is to be done, do you see the current infrastructure on ground, soft infrastructure, hard infrastructure, do you see them strong enough to sustain whatever it is that we want to sustain?
We actually have what it takes. We have what it takes.
Do we have the infrastructure?
We can still work with the current infrastructure.
But you just said now that one of the infrastructure, which is this value chain, is weak.
Yeah, so we need to empower the current infrastructure. Okay. We build on what we already have.
Not fight it.
Yeah, not fight it. We build on it. Because the farmers trust these people more than they trust the private sector and the government. Because
the bank.
Or the bank. They don't even want to hear the bank. The private sector comes with, brilliant idea. They rush to the farmers. They dash their hopes midway and run away. So the farmers trust the middleman. They call government intervention national cake because they are afraid that the implementation may not be thorough.
Okay. Now, in an interview that the president gave not long ago, he kept harping on, we've got to go back to the land. We've got to go back to the land. I'm sure you listened to that interview. How easy is it for us to go back to the land in light of all that you have said?
Well, it's quite easy, but the dynamics that will work has changed. Just like we're trying to build pyramids when we're supposed to be using silos. If you approach it with the old mindset, it won't work. I may not pass JAMB if I'm asked to go and write now because the syllabus I learned changed.
Yeah.
So what needs to be done right now is to look at, one, we need to redefine who are farmers. Who are the farmers we need to get on board?
Okay, define it for us.
Good. So there are the rural farmers who are about almost 60-year-old and above. They are dry bones.
60?
Yeah.
Well, that's old.
That's
to
old.
do farm work.
But that's the people we are still funding. They are dry bones. They've been used to, taking from government, not paying back, believing it's national cake. They are still the system we are oiling. We need to go for their children deliberately. We need to fund rural youths, not encourage urban youths. Go and fill a form online. It's not for the rural youth. The rural youths are the ones staying there. They are the ones who have seen their parents go through poverty, that they don't want to go through that cycle again. So until you are funding mechanization, small equipment, not the big tractors, that a farmer can use for 5 acres, 10 acres, and they can do it communally so that when I'm not using it, you can use it.
That's right.
If you are not funding mechanization, labor is scarce. Labor, Southwest and other part of the country, apart from the North, labor is from Benin Republic and Togo. The dollar exchange is not helping, so labor is the biggest issue. Then capacity development of youths. If you invest in a farm now, you're not likely to find the youth who has the exposure, to run it.
Exposure to
operate the farms. You're not likely to have it. So
doesn't that also say, my apologies for butting in, that we have a deficiency of education about agriculture, especially even with the youths themselves?
So you see, when you see this intervention, it should go directly to the colleges of agriculture, to the federal universities of agriculture, for institutions that fund agriculture. CBN should be heavily involved in, because you are giving farmers grants. Brilliant, good, we applaud it. But can you go and invest in the departments of agriculture to have top-notch equipment to work with?
Don't forget that even the students themselves don't seem to be interested in agriculture, because we had this interview with a professor in the university in Ibadan. She said, look, the students don't want to do agriculture. So perhaps that speaks to the kind of image we're giving to it.
So you see, the students majority want to do tech today, but we've not broken the value chain down. That, and I say this, any child in a remand home, as the child is leaving, should be brought into the agri sector, because the child is looking for a lifeline. The people who leave prisons should be deployed to drive tractors. Nobody will employ them. So the more we train them in the correctional homes, we prepare them for these value chains, the better. So the youths, we know they want tech, so they should be in distribution marketing. It's the rural youths that we should go for the vocational training, the 6334 that we used to have, the technical training, Europe, Hungary, majority of them are not graduates. Malaysia, all these countries have very strong vocational institutions. When you train them, they don't need to be a graduate. You don't need a graduate to drive a tractor.
No.
You need somebody to just operate it. So we need more strong vocational institutions that will train these people to prepare for it. The colleges of agriculture have the brilliant structure. I went to a college of agriculture. In year 1, you are to plant 10 crops and manage it, weed it, carry things on your head. It looks remote, but that's the reality is when you graduate. In year 2, you would have handled like 7 to 8 livestock. So when you go for your 1-year internship, you go to learn. And even your first 4 months in year one, you go to learn. So these are institutions that need to be equipped so that anyhow, you would learn how to do these things. Apart from the university, apart from the core technical universities like the FUNAB and co. Other universities, you learn theory, and in 6 months, goes close to your final year, they deploy you to go learn. What do you learn in 6 months? As against somebody who spent 4 months and was practical, 1 year and was practical. So we're using different models. And it's value chain. The urban youths can be pushed into value addition. The rural youths must first produce. We're getting it wrong in that, using that dynamics. We're still funding the old farmers, and the old farmers will not deliver. And I can talk from experience from many states. The farmers get this input and they sell. They sell. Everybody knows that. Everybody funding knows that. Every state governor knows that.
Okay. What is responsible for the high cost of foodstuff in the market? It's been that way now for about 3-4 months. What is the reason for it?
Largely climate change. Largely climate change. You see, because it's abstract, Nigerians...
3 onions, 500 naira.
Largely climate change. Then, after climate change, you will now pick the insurgency and banditry. But largely climate change. But because the concept of climate change is abstract. So last year in Kano, the rain stopped about 3 weeks to the ideal time. So this year now, we're going to have some grains expensive. But we're not paying attention to climate change. You remember some time ago when the river, that river at Bega dried up suddenly, that it made news. You covered it a lot. That happened in California when I was going through a training on U.S. foreign policy and food security. That happened. It wasn't new. But the things the experts were talking about was like magic happened. But Folsom Dam in the U.S., instead of just copy and what did they do? We just, package it around.
Copy and paste.
So climate change. Our dams have been receding for a long time. 6 years ago, a dam in Oyo State that I operate on receded by 20 meters. The figure didn't make any news. But it's an effect of climate change. So we don't have
rainfall. It affected food production.
It affected food production. 2 years ago, it didn't rain for 2 months in Southwest. It affected tomatoes, fresh corn, and co. And climate change, let me use the word lack of planning also.
Are we facing hunger?
This year, if we don't, deploy square pegs in square holes, we would have issues. Take, for instance, and I'll bring this out. It's projected that food will be expensive this year. However, suddenly, some of the parastatals now decided to fix the dam. So they shut down Kano Dam. So the farmers can't produce enough. Dadinkwa in Gombe, I operate in all these locations, so they can't, bamboozle me. You now, in the year, yes, you have a project, but you can suspend the project because the implementation is slow. So when you already have a prediction, 2 years, World Bank is saying it, AFDB, all these people are saying it, yet you now say you want to refurbish or rehabilitate the dam when we are not going to have enough food. You should allow the projects to run. So Kano is one of the biggest tomato producers in the country. Kano is not going to produce tomato this year. So a few months from now, you are going to see...
4 tomatoes, 1,000 naira.
Just wait for another 4 months.
No, we're not waiting.
So what needs to happen now is for government, is for CBN, because CBN, under Governor Emefiele, is really out there. So we need to go and support Southwest to produce, because when the North doesn't have, Southwest has. Places like Taraba, Jos, some places, and because of the climate, there's heat. If it rains, the first few rains in the North is like acid rain. I've faced losses on these things before. Before we mastered it.
So you know.
Yeah. So the river basins in the middle belt, in some places in the north central, we just need to be proactive.
So, you just called, it sounds like you've just called the CBN governor, the CBN governor and the CBN Father Christmas. But what's the responsibility for states and state governments in all of this?
Most of the states and state governments have, abandoned their responsibility and they blame federal governments all the time. But it's the state government that is responsible for feeding, for farming. The federal government is just supposed to aid them. See, federal government, okay, before I go into that, you see, so the state government has the farmers. They don't fund farming activities. The local government don't fund farming activities. You blame government. So the state governors don't know about agric. And let me call CBN, challenge me with this. Especially a lot of southwestern states have not embraced the anchor borrowers. The opportunity is there. They've not. Just Southwest, because Southwest now has more informed commissioners like Ogun, Ekiti. They are now the ones embracing it. But prior to 2 years, they weren't accessing the funding because there's a counterpart funding that you put down. And the northern governors also have forgotten that you are growing commercial, you should be funding processing.
It sounds to me like this conversation is another one of those conversations, Alero,
that we have just started.
Well, I'm very sure that we're going to be calling you again because we have run completely out of time. African Farmer Mortgages, the immediate past chairman of Agriculture and Agro-Allied Group, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much for these perspectives and this illumination.
We wish you all the best in spite of climate change.
We're going to fix food this year.
Not just... Can we just take a break? We'll be right back. Thank you very much for the home stretch, you always say.
It's okay, galala. Oh, galala. Are you feeling the dance? Oh, galala.
Thank you for staying with us and welcome to the home stretch. Yes, that was our artist of the week, LT Skills. And Skills, by the way, is spelled SKHILLZ.
What do you know?
There he is smiling away.
You were talking the other time about favorites and favorites. That's the evolution of English.
Benny. Skills is a singer, dancer, and a producer. Well, you saw him doing all of it in that video. He is the son of veteran actor Jide Kosoko. And he started his career as a dancer before he decided to go and do some music, in 2009, and it looks like the music is...
He's doing galala.
Hello, LT Skills. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you today?
I'm good. A little tired, but good.
Tired? Were you dancing last night?
Rehearsals, as usual, and studio sessions also. Usuals.
Great. Well, that means the guy is busy. So you should be thanking God because COVID killed a lot of jobs. Some people have no jobs.
Actually, that's true. It did.
Right.
But it's God's grace,
What?
It's God's grace that we're still here.
You are very correct. You're very correct.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, Taiwo, is that your first name?
Yes, that's my first name, Taiwo.
Yes, Taiwo. By the way, where is Kende?
I didn't know you wanted me in this interview. It's in the next room right now. Okay, but he was almost here. I wanted to disturb the interview initially, but he was disappointed that I was not live yet.
Do you work together?
Yeah, he's a sound engineer, so I sing, he mixes and masters my song.
So you're keeping it in the family. Mm-hmm. Now tell us.
It has to be in the family.
You started out with dancing.
Yeah.
First of all, why did you choose dance?
Actually, funny enough, I think they both chose me. I'm sure a lot of people are used to the whole, yeah, when I was young, when I was this, but for me, it was just a very fun experience. I saw my uncle dancing to Michael Jackson. So what he was doing was different from what I was seeing on TV. So I was intrigued by the guy on TV, not by my uncle, because he was dancing something else. I think he was trying to imitate Michael Jackson. And when I watched what Michael Jackson was doing, I was 7 by then. Actually, just loved and I fell in love with it. And since since that age, I never wanted to do anything else aside from singing and dance. So, but this is Nigeria. You have to start one first, and I started as a dancer.
Okay, but now you are a singer and a dancer.
Yeah, I am both.
But go on, tell us.
I am basically a choreographer. I sing also, and I produce also. So it's more like a hand-in-hand thing. It's more like I'm living what I've always wanted to do since I was young. I never saw myself doing anything else at all, except for what I'm doing right now. So, and I'm glad that I'm able to actually follow the path of my dream.
Okay. There's no acting there anywhere?
I get that a lot. We've actually had issues. God bless my mom. So my mom always talked to me she was just like, when are you going to actually act in a movie? I've acted in 1 or 2 movies, but they were not major roles. I was just there, and the reason why I don't act is because I think personally, it has to do with me. I don't know if I'm that good at acting. I'm very good at singing and dancing and performing, and I spend most of my life doing all those things. So it kind of makes me different. My younger brother and my younger sister act, but my twin brother actually has these funny faces also. We can actually give you expressions, and he can act. But me, it's like, I don't know.
I don't even know the difference between performing and acting. Are they not both performance? Don't mind them.
Yeah.
Don't mind them.
They're actually both performances,
Exactly.
but different expression. That's the difference. One is movement of the body, consistent movement of the body to create an entertainment. The other is expression of face and heart to actually create expression also. So
you can't be singing. You can't sing a dirge and smile. You still have to wear an expression on your face. So please, it's all performance. Don't mind them. We are on the same page. Don't mind them. The question that I'd want to ask you, LT, is what's the identity that you would like to be known for? What's the niche for your own music and dance, for your own performance?
I think all I've always wanted to do is actually take entertainment to a whole different level, especially performances. Okay, the way I see myself in the next 10 years is shaping the performance industry, the music industry, but mostly performance, because when you think about artists, there are very, very few performers in this industry. There are few people that can come on stage, hold the stage for the next 2 hours, and you still remain entertained from the beginning to the end. And I am the kind of person who likes to experiment a lot. So the goal is to actually be the best. That's why they call me the stage controller. The goal is to be the best performer, aside from being the best artist, but the best performer you've ever met. Okay, so when you're thinking about entertainment, the first person that comes to your head should be LT.
There are those who believe that, and this is why I asked the question in the first place. There are those who believe that entertainment is got to have a message. That's why movies always have to carry a theme. A song is always about something, if it's whether it's conscious music or just fun music. All of that. Yeah, so that's why I'm asking, what's the niche? What's the message? What's the identity? What's the philosophy of LT?
Okay, LT is just to be very honest, I don't like to complicate my life or myself by saying, oh, this is what I want. I actually have a dream. I have a personal goal as an entrepreneur. I have a personal goal, which is going to surprise a lot of people when I start working on the project. But and that has to do with the country, that has to do with people generally. But for my music, it's just for me to have fun, okay, express myself whichever way I can. I don't like to complicate my mindset when I'm singing or writing a song. I go according to what comes to my head. I just dropped an EP, and if you listen to the EP, there are different story. I like the storytell. So some songs about domestic violence, pain, and what's it called, and suicide. And some were just storytelling about, normal relationship things. Some about dance, having fun. I like the storyteller, so I go according to what comes to my mind. So I don't like to say I want people to see me as an artist who passed 1,000 messages. The most important thing is that I'm being of service to people who actually enjoy my music. Okay, whether I'm passing a message or I'm just storytelling, whichever one, but you enjoy the music. That's the most important thing to me.
Well, I also like the fact that, you've been able to identify certain societal ills that if we can get rid of those, society will be better for it. Now,
actually,
yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so thank you for that, by the way, because we don't have so many of that. Conscious music is what we call it. But, you're a young man, and there are those who are wondering, with all of the distractions and all of the fun that you could be having as the son of Jide Kosoko, and you decide to do something for yourself. You could just be balling, you know what I'm saying? You could just be having fun all over the place, but you decided that you want to do something. What's the motivation for deciding to own something of your own as opposed to just having fun?
My mom, she raised me well. She taught me how to understand how best to make decisions. While everybody's like, okay, I'm son of Jide Kosoko, and then we are, they basically think we're actually growing like, they think it's easy for us, or it was easy for us rather. But my mom made sure that I do things the best way to her. She felt like in order for me to actually attain or actually do things according to what I want or what I hope for, she made sure that I understand the depth of decision making, how to evaluate myself, people, my surroundings. She didn't make things easy for me. In fact, I think the fact that I'm able to be who I am today is due to the fact that she was hard on I and my twin brother. So so that we don't, aside from the fact that you don't get spoiled, so that we don't what's the word? So that we don't take for granted what we have. Or what we had and what we have so far. So she made us very, very conscious of everything that we're doing. And aside from relationships to people to betrayal to understanding oneself, a lot of things. So I actually didn't grow up being conscious of material things, in as much as a lot of people actually will always flaunt one or two things in your face. But then I actually wasn't conscious of those things. That was my goal. When I was in university, I didn't have a television. Yes, I did not. I actually was, the money I had, instead of buying TV, I actually went to buy a piano, connected them to my laptop. I was pressing my system to create beats throughout school. And she was the kind of person who actually decided that everything I want for myself, there are stages to it. So I actually shouldn't jump past where I am. I should just take them step by step. I should learn to crawl before walking, before jumping or running. So my mom was the strength. And then my dad was always like, if this boy start this thing now, he'll be distracted every time. School, this, school that. And I was like, okay, now school is over. What next?
Happy?
So you have a choice. It was like, you have a degree now, so whatever plan you have, I'm in support of it. And then that was it.
Okay, what is this degree in, by the way?
Yeah, I studied banking and finance.
Banking and finance.
Yes.
So you brought home a certificate in banking and finance.
Exactly.
And then you told your father, I want to dance.
I
Yeah?
actually, funny enough, before I brought the certificate, I told him I want to dance. And it was like, go to school. And I said, and in my mind, I was like, I'll bring the certificate and I'll see dance.
Here is a stubborn kid.
Who actually has a goal. And I'm glad that he actually agreed to it. And my mom did also. And my family have just they've been awesome. And I'm grateful to God for that.
What did your twin brother study?
Study economics.
Well,
Yeah.
I suppose these days, the only way that parents feel is that just do something which will enable you look after yourself. They're not bothered about, you must do engineering, and you must do this, and you must do that. Just be able to fend for yourself and your family. So
I agree.
Yeah. LT, this is a new year.
Okay.
What are we expecting from you this year?
I just released my EP last week titled Body of Work. And there are a lot of videos I'll be putting out real soon this year. I'm working on another album before the end of the year. Also, sorry. And you guys just expect a lot of content, from music videos to tours to performances. Actually have a project this year that I want to show. It's called Two Sides of LT. A lot of people actually know me for my singing and dancing, but they don't actually know I actually have a jazz side. I actually have a side it's just pure jazz.
Wow.
Okay, but this is Nigeria now. In order for you to get to where you're going to, you actually have to give them what they want first, and then they can pay attention to whatever it is you have to offer. So I just... Anyway, yeah, that's the truth. But like he said, conscious music is one thing that's happening in this country. So we've barely seen people actually do Afro jazz and actually entertain with it at the same time. So it's one thing I actually have in mind, and I hope people enjoy it when I put it out there.
Well, we can't wait, because at the end of the day, it's all about the message that we have. One of the things we do here is to put the word out there so people can make their choices when the time is right. So if you would counsel people your age who are disillusioned now, what would you tell them?
I'll tell them to find God first. That's very important to me. There was a time in my life that I almost took my own life, and I found God in the process. And the way I found God was it was the best way ever, and it's the best feeling ever. And the first thing I'll tell people is find God, and then set a goal for yourself, okay? Because no matter what you do, you have to live with the reality that not everything will work your way, and not everything will actually work according to the way you want it. But believe that as long as you're consistent in it, you're prayerful, you're hardworking, and you understand what you're doing, and you're good at it, then it will actually work one day. So most importantly, find God first. Okay.
LT, thank you very much for being our guest today, and we wish you all the best this year and always.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Keep dancing. So LT wraps up Sunrise for us today. I'm Alero Edu, wishing you a happy weekend and a happy next week. See you next Saturday with a fresh edition.
Well, the year is just starting, and the sun will shine every day. May that sun shine on you in all you do. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.